This is a super cool, brand new, very compact and high quality music stand by KraftGeek. I'm so excited to tell you about it and if it's worth it for you to get it for yourself. My name is Josh Gu, and I'm taking my years of experience learning, teaching, and performing and sharing all of my best clarinet and music tips so you can get more out of your practice and, most importantly, have fun. You can learn more about all of my many resources at QuickStartClarinet.com, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit the bell to get notified when I post new videos. Before we get started, as always on videos like this, I like to add the little disclaimer about how I got this product and why I'm reviewing it. So KraftGeek reached out to me after they won the Best of NAMM for 2024 with this product, and they reached out to me asking if I would like to do a review of it. So they sent it to me for free and gave me the whole deluxe bundle of it, which is fantastic. I also have some affiliate links in the description where you can get a little discount for yourself, and I also get a little money from that as well. But I'm not being paid to say anything positive about this. They said that I just can give my unbiased review of it. So these are all of my true, honest thoughts about it, and I'm gonna go over the pros, the cons, all the good things, all the bad things, and give you a really in-depth look at this music stand. So the first thing you'll notice is this does not look like your traditional folding wire stand that you probably got in elementary band and have been trying to use ever since as it gets beaten up. This is a little bit different shape, and the way it works is quite a bit different as well. So let me start by showing just how it actually unfolds and turns into a stand, which is super cool because there's really only one screw that you have to turn, and honestly you don't even have to turn it. So there's this tension screw here which you can loosen, and then it folds up like this. Then there's one other locking mechanism which is super simple and has really great sort of visuals of how it works. You just give that a quarter turn, these pop out, and then you're able to slide that down and lock it into place. And that's the base of the stand. Then the actual table of the stand, you just fold those out, flip that around, and you have the actual sort of desk of the stand itself. And there's no other adjustments that you really have to make. You can retighten this screw to make sure that it's not flopping around, but even with this pretty loose, it's pretty firm and not going to wiggle around on you. And then to adjust the height, there's no sort of loosening something and then retightening it. It's just a telescoping stand, just like your normal high quality music stands. You just sort of pull it up and it's good to go. And I tested this out pretty extensively, where I left my iPad and my chunky Lomax Humidipro reed case, which is not the lightest reed case, both of those on the stand overnight and sort of checked where the height was, and it didn't budge at all over the whole night. So this is pretty solid, sturdy telescoping. This is pretty new, so it'll be interesting to see how that wears over time, if it stays nice and secure like it is now, but we'll see how that goes over time. And the other amazing thing about this telescoping is that it gets really, really long, and I bet that's not even in the shot anymore. On the website, they say 66 inches for the full height of the stand, and it is 66 inches from the floor to the top here. The actual sort of desk itself, where the bottom of the music would be sitting, is about 51 inches. But again, at its maximum height, that's taller than I would ever need for a stand, and feels taller than your traditional Manhasset or your good quality music stands that you'd have at school. So I feel like the height is really, really good on this if you need something super tall. The other cool thing about the height, because it is such a compact stand, is it also gets very, very short. So in its shortest mode, you could use this for sort of those traditional guitar stands or things like that. At its shortest, the top is about 32 inches from the ground, and the desk is about 17 inches from the ground. So super manageable for being really low. The one problem with using it super low, like the guitar stands, is even when you put this all the way back, that's the max angle that you can get for the stand. So when you're looking at it down on the ground, it might be enough of an angle, but oftentimes we would see it going maybe a little bit further. So that's definitely one of my complaints about this, is that just a little bit more leaning back on that would be fantastic. The range of motion the other way is all the way closed. So if we just had a little bit more there, it'd really be worth it. And while we're talking about height, I do have a complaint about the height actually from sort of where the music sits to the top of the stand. At 15.5 inches, it's about 2 inches longer than a traditional stand, which is great if you're using really large scores like 11 by 17s or something. But for me, I do most of my playing on an iPad. And when you put an iPad on it, there's a ton of extra room up here, which kind of feels like wasted space to me, especially for a compact stand. It feels a little bit weird to have this bit of extra space. I do understand why it's there though, because that is basically the length of the legs. So when I collapse the stand down again, you can see that's the same length. And I think it makes perfect sense for these to be the same length. And the length of these legs do make it super duper steady. I can, again, set it up with my iPad on it and at a pretty reasonable height. This is probably taller than I would play even if I was sitting down. And I can really sort of wiggle it around and knock it around. And it does have wiggle to it because the telescoping stand has some flexibility to it. But it's not going to fall over, even with the iPad on it, with some pretty good wiggling around, as long as you don't push the iPad off that way. But the width of the legs does give some great sturdiness to it. However, it also gives it a pretty big profile sitting on the ground. I also don't love that you can't rotate the stand in relationship to the legs. So the orientation of the legs is always going to be the same. And the orientation of it, in case you're curious about that, is sort of the gap in the middle is the way that the stand is facing, which I think is a reasonable orientation for it. Though for me personally, I like to push my stand sort of flat against the wall in the office, so I would love for this to be turned like 90 degrees the other way, but it doesn't turn, so that's one of the potential downsides that maybe isn't a huge deal, but is a little bothersome to me personally. Now there's two other pretty nifty features to this that I didn't realize at first. It was really funny as I was experimenting with this and sort of exploring, as I had just a regular size sheet of music and was thinking about, okay, does this work for one piece of music or two pieces of music? And if you put one piece of music on it, it's a little bit weird that these clips are not quite in the right space. Speaking of these clips though, they're absolutely brilliant. They're a little hard to see on camera probably, but there's two clear clips here that sort of work as clothespins, and it's also wonderful that they're clear because you can stick it anywhere on your music and it's not going to block the music because you can actually see through it. But as you can see, with two, it's not fitting very well. And even if it was just one page, it's not fitting very well. You can kind of clip the very edges of the music in it. And I was looking at this and thinking, well, maybe with one you can like kind of angle this and that would kind of work and actually would be a useful solution to it. And I was looking at it and I'm like, oh, I wish these like extended and then you could do two. And I pulled on them and it turns out those do extend. And when they extend, they're the perfect length for 2 pages of music. And again, this is absolutely perfect if you have just 2 pages of music that you're looking at. I hate playing with clips because turning the pages is kind of a pain. But even that experience is not terrible on this and would be manageable, at least if you have 2 hands, but you don't always have 2 hands when you're playing. So that's the way that those extend and those clips work. It's awesome that there are clips. I don't have to worry about it too much because I always play on the iPad, but it's fantastic that these extend and perfectly fit 2 pages of music. One other thing that I've seen on Amazon reviews and stuff is some complaint about the page turning and sort of this little bump here and having issues with that bump running into the pages. If you're turning normally, I don't have any problem with that at all. It seems really, really easy. I maybe had it got caught on there once, but it was one time. And I think if you're just turning normally, it should work fine. 99% of the time. And there's one other kind of cool feature that I didn't realize was part of it at first, and that's that this top piece is actually adjustable as well. You can slide it up and down, and that's perfect for sort of depending on the size of music you're working with. So if you were worried about the floppiness up here, you can slide it down to where it's going to support the level of a normal piece of music as well. Another thing that I was doing, which maybe isn't exactly how it's intended, but putting this about halfway and then folding it down a little bit. And then it looks a little bit more like your traditional wire stand. And again, if you put something there, it's going to be well supported on those corners, so you don't have to worry about it flopping over or anything like that. So that's a pretty in-depth look at the functionality of the KraftGeek music stand. I have a couple other features to show and a couple additions to it that they sent as well as maybe a few more gripes to talk about before we get to the end of, is this actually worth it for you? Should you pick up this stand? So starting with the accessories, they also sent a very sleek, cool carrying case, and it has these pretty cool adjustable pockets inside as well that Velcro, so you can kind of adjust the length of these and the position of that inner pocket. And they also sent a few of the accessories that come with the light, or come with the stand. One of them is a light. So there's this very cool stand light that integrates really well into the stand. You just fold out these things, the actual lights, and then you can screw it into the top. And it's pretty simple to have this knob here to screw it in. I also feel like the excess height doesn't look so bad when there's the stand light on it, and it feels more natural for it to be that height. There are 2 brightness settings on this, and it's really great coverage. I actually had to use this when I was testing this out. A storm was rolling in and I didn't have the light on in my room. The sun got dark and I was like starting to have a hard time reading my music because I was actually reading off of paper music also to test the page turning. And I was like, oh, I have the light attached, I'll just turn that on. So it was actually very convenient. And again, if you're gonna have this sort of sitting around, just keeping that on there is a really cool feature to have. Again, especially if you're reading off of paper music most of the time. So that's a very nifty feature and works very well. It's kind of weird because it's battery powered, but it also has a USB-C plug on it. So you could just plug it into USB-C power and it works without putting the batteries in, but you also can't recharge it. So it's kind of a weird hybrid of, you can run it off of power without batteries if you have a plugged in USB-C, or presumably a sort of external battery pack could also be an option that plugs in by USB-C. And then you could do traditional AA batteries. It takes 3 AA batteries, and I imagine the lifespan would be pretty good with that many batteries. Now, the other cool feature that it comes with is a phone stand, which also ties into one of my bigger gripes about it, but we'll talk about that in a second. This phone stand is great, and I also should mention it doesn't actually come with it by default. It's part of the extra package that costs a little bit more money. But the phone stand did work very well. It comes with sort of a clamp stand, and it's also really cool because it's an extendable clamp stand, so you can make it a little bit longer and then make it stretchy. It fit my 12.9-inch iPad Pro no problem without the case. With the case on, it might be a little problem, and the Apple Pencil on the side and stuff, so it might not work, but sort of horizontally, the iPad fit no problem with the extended version of this. And then it screws in with this mount that's also included and also removable. This mount, which has a hole here, and also is the same hole as the light at the top. So you could screw it into the top as well if you wanted a really high phone. But it has a point here that you screw into. This mount's super easy. You can just unscrew that, and then you have some flexibility. You just screw it in to this guy right here, and then you can have your phone on the bottom of your stand. It's nice too because this little spring mount has screw both here and on the back, so you can orient it in a few different ways as well on this mount, which makes it really convenient to sort of get your phone in there whichever way that you'd like. And you can see with my imaginary phone, because I'm recording the video with my actual phone, but you can just snap that in there really easily. You can tighten this down and it won't move around at all. And it was actually very nice and very convenient and kind of a cool little feature, and felt very high tech to have my iPad up here on the stand, and then my phone down here with my metronome and all my practice apps and things like that going, which was pretty neat. A couple problems with this phone stand is if you have anything on the back, especially if it's anything that's a little bit thick, like definitely a pop socket wouldn't work with this. So if you have a pop socket stuck on your phone, you'll either need to take the phone out of the case or take the pop socket off because of the sort of depth of this stand. Actually, you can see this is a super thin little extra on the back of the case, and it's already almost starting to be too thick for it. And my normal case, actually, my newer case, has a slightly thicker one, and luckily it's MagSafe, so it's easy to take off and put back on, but I did have to take it off for my phone to be really secure in the clamp. And speaking of little gripes related to the phone, I realized why this phone clamp is a product that exists for this stand, because I was practicing and I had my iPad on the stand, and then I went to put my phone on the stand like I normally would and set it there, and that's about what happened because there's no way to hold it back here. Maybe you could turn this guy at the right angle and maybe get the phone to sort of sit there relatively securely, so that could be an option. The other thing that I was doing was setting it up on the top, but of course you can't do that with the music light on, the stand light, so I have to take that off, and then I have to put the stand here and sort of balance it precariously on top of the iPad, which again kind of worked well enough, so there's kind of solutions to this, but it definitely makes total sense why the phone clip and the phone clamp here exists. However, this costs extra, the carrying case costs extra in addition to the stand. And I think that brings us to my last few gripes about it. So one of them is with the accessories, especially with the phone stand, which is nearly mandatory, I feel like, and necessary, is that you have to actually disassemble this to be able to put the stand away because it has to fold down onto that. So it's a really cool feature, but kind of limits the compactness of this. And again, for maybe just a quick gig where you're going to be traveling with it, it's easy to take off every now and then, but then when I'm back home and want to be using it, then I have to be putting it on and off again. And if I want to carry it, then I need to put the accessories into the carrying case, which is a little bit more bulky than just the stand itself. I also really wish that there was an easier way to carry the stand on its own. It's super simple and super easy to break down, which is great and works really fast that way. But when it comes to actually traveling with it, there's the cool carrying case, which also costs extra. But once you've broken it down and you have it all ready to go, there's not a lot of ease when it comes to ways to carry it. Like, there's no handle, you just kind of have to hold the whole thing. You can maybe hold like one half of it, but when I'm going between gigs and stuff and have my hands really full, it's not the most convenient thing ever. There's no handle, there's no hook. It's a little bit hard to attach to anything. I did find a way to sort of open it up this way and put the handle of my Clarinet bag in there and then clamp it down on there. And that worked pretty well, and it definitely stayed secure where it wasn't flopping open and falling out, which was very nice. Again, it's pretty new, so we'll see how this screw holds up, but everything about this feels super high quality, so I wouldn't be surprised if all of those components hold up really well for quite a long time. The weight of it is pretty light. It's a little heavier than your traditional wire stand, but definitely lighter than my normal, little bit more heavy-duty metal travel stand, and a whole lot more compact for sure as well. But speaking of compactness, I think that's probably my biggest complaint with this, is that it's a compact stand, which is great, but a few things of it just feel a little too big. Like when you open it up, the base of the legs feels a little too big. The height of the stand itself feels a little too big, especially for the kind of minimalist look of it. It's so cool and looks really, really hip and modern as far as how sort of sleek this setup is. but then it's just so long that it kind of loses that sleek aesthetic to me a little bit. And again, I wish it was like 2 inches shorter. Like if that was the top of it there rather than up here, I feel like it would look a little bit more normal and like what you would expect in a stand. And I feel like it'd be a little more practical for me. I was kind of hopeful when I was first looking at this product that it could be kind of like the sleek minimalist iPad stand where people just have like an iPad mount and use that as their stands. But I think with how big the top is, it wouldn't work out. And I really do feel like they could take like those 2 inches off of both the legs, which would make the spread of the legs a little bit narrower and make the desk a little bit shorter and the actual stand itself a little bit shorter. Maybe they tested that and this is sort of the minimum width they could get for keeping it really stable without toppling over. That's certainly possible, but I feel like just like 2 inches shorter would make such a difference for it looking a little bit sleeker, feeling a little bit more compact and easy to carry around, and being more sort of like what you would expect of a traditional stand while maintaining all of the cool new features and that really good sort of sleek functionality of it. So now that you know all of the detailed ins and outs and all of my opinions about the KraftGeek music stand, let's talk about the price and if this is worth it for you and if you should get it. I think I got this idea from Linus Tech Tips YouTube videos that I really like, and I believe he says something to the effect of, there's no bad product, just bad pricing for the products. And this one, I think the price is in the ballpark and is not too bad at all, and it's certainly not a bad product. The quality here is very high, and I think the quality does fairly well justify the price. But what the price is for the stand on their website is $80. You can get it on Amazon, at least right now, for like $75, so it's a tiny bit cheaper over on Amazon, but just the stand, just what you see here, is $80. And again, very high quality, pretty innovative, has some cool features. $80 is a little bit steep when you compare it to the prices of a normal wire stand or even a little bit more heavy duty metal stand. I literally just checked on Amazon real quick and you can get pretty solid stands for less than $20, including a carrying case. And again, they're not this compact. This is really the coolest feature of this product, is how compact it can get and how high quality and sturdy and stable it feels for this compact form factor. So the quality is definitely there to justify more than $15, but is it all the way there to justify $80 for just this? If you get this and the carrying case on their website is $100, and you can get this, the carrying case, the light, and the phone stand mount, everything that I demoed in this video, for $140 on their website. So at $140 for all of those things, it's a bit pricey, I think. So now it's up to you to decide if this cool product is worth those prices and how many accessories you want to get bundled with it. I do really think the phone stand, if you use your phone a lot when you're practicing, is really kind of necessary and really, really valuable. If you play on an iPad, then the light is not so necessary, though the light is cool. I do have one other complaint about the light too while I'm thinking about it, is there's no swivel to it. So the angle that you get is the angle that you get. That angle is great for reading the music, and I think it's okay from the audience's perspective as well. But if you were going to use this as a conductor, first of all, you couldn't, because it doesn't fold far enough back to be flat. And even if it did, then the light would be pointing this way pretty much directly at the audience. So I wish there was a little swivel to the lights to give a little bit more sort of flexibility there. But the light coverage is good as is. So if $80 or $150 or $140 technically doesn't feel like too much of a burden to you and feels like, oh yeah, I would spend $80 on a stand, no problem, this is a great option, especially if you're looking for something compact, because no other stand is this high quality with this compact of a form factor, I think. If $80 feels a little excessive for a music stand, then it might not be for you. And I don't think the benefits of this are totally a must-have at that price point. For me personally, it would probably be $60. I would go for it. $40 would be an absolutely a no-brainer for the stand, especially if maybe at $60 it included the phone mount as well. Or maybe I would go up to like 80 or 100 for the whole package altogether with the case, the phone mount, and the light would feel like a good price to me personally. But of course, everybody has sort of different financial price points for what feels good to them. And if you like this product and think that you would want to try it out and give it a look, definitely is high quality, definitely is a good product. So if that price point feels good for you and everything that you saw in this video looks like something you'd be interested in, then you can check the links in the description to check it out. And you can use the code QSC for QuickStart Clarinet at checkout and save 10%, which brings the price down and makes it a little bit more manageable as well. So I hope that you enjoyed this review of the KraftGeek music stand. Again, if you're looking for something very high quality, very compact, this is awesome. I am personally going to use it for some gigs and things and continue trying it out, and I'm excited to see how the sort of durability of it holds up, because my current metal music stand is starting to fall apart in those screw joints, which this doesn't have any screws that can really get stripped. So that's really nice, and I'm excited to see how this holds up and am personally going to use it. Would I personally have spent $80 for this? Probably not, but I am excited to give it a try, and definitely thanks to KraftGeek for sending it over. And again, if you want high quality, super compact, awesome music stand, check those links in the description. Thanks so much for watching this video. Let me know if you have any questions about this or any other music or clarinet questions, and I'll be happy to answer those in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in another video. And last but not least, a huge heartfelt thank you to the Dennersons. This is like the QuickStart Clarinet family who supports the channel and helps to make everything that I do possible. If you would like to support the channel and get some awesome rewards in return, where we can work one-on-one over video and you can have my full support moving forward on your clarinet journey, then go to quickstartclarinet.com/supporter.